You're listening to the Ranger Football Podcast, brought to you by Southern Trading and Pawn and The Slab in Roland.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome back. This is the 9th episode of the Ranger Football Podcast, week number 8 that we've done the show. But it's going to be week number 4 in football. The high school team is headed up to Park Hill, Oklahoma this week. That is up past the Cooks and Hills area around Tahlequah. We saw some folks from Tahlequah this past week, and we'll get back into those games here in just a second. And the Youth League, we're going to see the Youth League Rangers at home this week. So we've got Pocola coming home to see us. Well, they're not coming home. They're coming to our home, and we will defend it. So we'll talk more about the Youth League games that we've got coming up. We'll talk about a little bit about what the Youth League did this past weekend. I know they showed up to Stillwell, and well, I don't want to give it away just yet. We'll cover what's on the Roland Youth League football page on Facebook. Remember, we're live on Spreaker.com. It's 11 o'clock. I decided, well, we decided that we would change our broadcast day from Tuesday to Wednesday. And here's why we did it. I don't know why it is. Maybe just because it's hump day on Wednesday. But we realized that we're getting a whole lot better ratings on Wednesdays for some reason. Maybe people find more time to squeeze the podcast into their day. Lunchtime. I mean, I've told you guys before, and I've put screenshots of our listeners, our numbers on Facebook. We have a crazy, really, honestly, a surprising amount of a number of listeners who are listening to the football podcast, and I'm glad. I'm not complaining at all. We've got between 600 and 700 people. We've only had one episode, the Ashton Peters interview. That episode was the only one that went over 700. The rest have been between 600 and 700. So those are great numbers. I know I've mentioned it before, but I honestly thought we would have maybe 200 people who would listen to these shows. But apparently, and I know this because I'm getting some feedback in my inbox, apparently some of the high school players are listening. I know the parents of the Youth League are listening, also parents of the high school. I mean, there's just all kinds of people. There's some teachers who have come up to me and said, hey, great job, we love what you're doing. Some coaches. We talked to Coach Pratt, Greg Pratt, with the girls' high school basketball team. We had him on at halftime for a brief interview on Inside Fort Smith at the game in, at home when Tahlequah Sequoia came to town this past Friday. So, he thanked me for what we're doing. We're getting a lot of exposure for our players and for our teams, and that's the point of this. That's what we want to do. We want to, as far as I know, we're the only school who does this. And I realize this football podcast is not affiliated with the school. The school does not pay our bills or anything like that. We have sponsors for that, and we're going to thank them here in just a second. But as far as I know, there's no other schools who do stuff like this. I've mentioned several times we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on I need to write this stuff down. I need to start writing all this stuff down. We're on Facebook, Twitter, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio. We're also on YouTube. You can go to the podcast section in iTunes. You can go to Google Play Music. You can also go to your Google Play Store and your Apple App Store, and you can download the Ranger Football Podcast app for either an Apple device or an Android device. No other schools do this around here. Everybody's shaking their heads no. I don't think we have anything like this. I had one person from Muldrow, and I'm not going to name drop, and they said, hey, man, can you show me how to do this? We want to. And I said, no, I'm not going to show you how to do this. Like, if you want to venture off into this and learn how to do it, that's totally fine. My services are not free, personally, and I know I've mentioned it several times as well, but when I was promoting MMA in Fort Smith, that's when I got into podcasting, and it helped. Boy, did it help. We saw our crowds grow. Our fighters got more exposure. I used to interview fighters on the show, and especially when we had big head-to-head matchups like the Garrett Cox and Rodney Allison matchups, Oscar Valdez. There was all kinds. The Redneck Fight Club guys from LaFleur County. Anytime we had some of them on, it was always good. And that's what we're bringing to the Ranger Football Podcast. And I know I've said that we want to get some more football players on, and we will. We will. It's just a matter of timing. You know, I know what it's like to play high school sports, and the last thing you want to do is go off giving an interview after a loss. You know what I mean? So it's kind of tough to approach these guys. I don't want to hit them in a bad spot. I know we had a lot of injuries this past week. We saw L.J. Williams I don't even know if L.J. got to suit up. I didn't see number 5 on the sideline, and I must not have been looking too hard because he was. I know he was there. But we did not see him in the game, so here's to hoping LJ's doing better. Also, Caleb McKinney left the game with a shoulder injury or a clavicle somewhere in there, collarbone. You guys know what that is. You've all taken Coach Quickle's classes in school. I know I did. Well, I don't even know if she still teaches those same classes, but that's where I learned all the bones. And But, you know, I'm hoping that these guys have come back from these injuries and they're going to be able to get out on the field. Nobody wants to see an injury, especially in their senior year. That's devastating because that's something you can never go back and change. And I promise LJ and Caleb, I'm not trying to rub that in, you guys. But we do hope that you guys are doing better. We hope that we can see you on the field. I know we're going to be missing Caleb's leg back there shooting off punts. You know, of course, nobody wants to punt, but when you have to, you want Caleb McKinney to punt. Caleb almost puts it everywhere I think he's going to put it anytime he has to kick that ball. So, you know, we hope we see these guys. We got a little bit banged up. I know Logan Wolf had a couple of stingers during the game, but he got up and kept right on going, and fortunately they weren't too bad. Logan's tough. I don't know if people took note of this, but if you don't keep your eyes on number 6 during the game, he ran a couple of slants. He ran a lot of he caught some short passes up the middle and was met at the door by the linebackers every time. But they tried to put a licking on Logan Wolf, and he just kept going. So, you know, I hope Logan's doing okay, and that's one thing. We'll try to get an injury report from now on. I don't know exactly who to talk to about that, but hopefully somebody will shoot us a message. If you're on Facebook, let's get into the business here. I'm sorry I rattled off about that, but if you're on Facebook, go to your search bar, type in Ranger Podcast Network. Now, it used to be Ranger Football Podcast that you could type in, but since we're going to parlay this into a basketball podcast at the end of football season, we're going to just keep this thing going. I mean, we're going to do this for the basketball teams. We're also with Inside Fort Smith and Oklahoma Sports. We're going to try to keep the live game broadcast going. So we'll keep everybody updated on how that's going. That'll also come down to funding a little bit. You know, it's totally doable. So, you know, we've got great sponsors on board for the podcast and the broadcast, and so we'll try to keep that going for basketball season as well. But type in Ranger Podcast Network. Go ahead and like that page. That is the official Facebook page of this show. Also, type in Roland Youth League Football and like that page as well. I know we're trying to hit 500 likes on the Youth League page. I don't know if we're trying to do some type of giveaway or something like that. I don't know if that's the case. But if you have not liked either of those pages, go ahead and do that. I think we're about to hit 300 on the podcast page. We're pushing 500 with the Youth League page. And so they're all moving on up. So cue the Jeffersons music. Also, the Ranger Football Podcast app on Google Play is sponsored by Southern Trading and Pawn, located at 4621 Towson Avenue. That is right on the corner of Towson and Phoenix in Fort Smith. Stop by and see Vernon and his crew for all your trading and pawn needs. If you have any questions, and I'm sure some of you might, call 479-434-4649. 4830. Also, go on Facebook in your search bar. Type in Southern Trading and Pawn and go give their page a like. I don't know why I haven't been talking about that. And I'm lucky that Vernon, he hasn't messaged me and said, dude, why are you not promoting our Facebook page? So I'm going to go ahead and call myself out on that. Go ahead and type in Southern Trading and Pawn in your search bar on Facebook and like the page. That is the official, the only, the best trading and pawn shop of the Ranger Football Podcast. Now, the Ranger Football Podcast app on iTunes, on your Apple App Store, is sponsored by The Slab in Roland, located at 104 South Roland Road. The Slab is your home for the best barbecue on this side of the river. They're open 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. Also, the Slab Trailer is open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. today, Wednesday, through Friday, and catering is available by request. For questions or to place your orders right now, call 918-503-6531. That's perfect. Everybody loves the Slab. It seems like everywhere I go, all I do is hear people talking about the Slab. They started out with the trailer down toward the end of Roland Road, down by the at the little spot where Java Joe's sits with the coffee, now across from the tire shop, and then they have moved into the old McKinney Grocery Building, and they've got a great selection of groceries that you can go in there and pick up, and then the food coming out of the trailer, the Slab trailer. Holy cow! You got to try it. Also, the Ranger Football Podcast is brought to you by Mantees Casual Wear, focused on the adolescent male of all ages, and by Mayrays for casual wear with a more feminine touch. And that one's always for the ladies. Custom orders are welcome, and you can follow both lines on Facebook or simply go to man-tees.com. Use the promo code RANGERS for 20% off your orders. And last but not least, my guys, Fernie and Isaac, out at the Center Street Parlor. That is at 1731 West Center Street in Greenwood, Arkansas. I know everybody knows where that is. You get on 71, you go south, you hit Greenwood, you hit Center Street, you hit 1731. Just walk in the door and find these guys. They're open Tuesday through Saturday. Let's go ahead and put all the days in there, not just Saturday. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to whenever they finish. For more information or to schedule your appointment for your next tattoo, call Fernie or Isaac at 479-252-6274. And that's how you do that. Also, I want to give a shout-out to Inside Fort Smith and Arklahoma Sports. I know I mentioned both of those entities just a moment ago. Dennis McCaslin has provided the ability to broadcast our games. We were way cramped this past Friday night. We were in the press box with Mr. Rainwater and Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Brandt, and we made sure we were out of the way for those guys to do their jobs, and I hope we did a good job at staying out of the way. But we were really cramped in there. We didn't really have a place to set up that we could have a plug-in, and so we had to kind of squeeze in there. But I think preparations are being made at Keys High School for us to have a little bit better of a setup to broadcast on Inside Fort Smith and Arklahoma Sports, and so hopefully that goes swimmingly. I need to get a hold of Dennis this week. I've seen him. He's been pretty active on Facebook. He's been keeping up with the Sebastian County mugshots on Inside Fort Smith on the Facebook page, and the news, all the news and weather and sports, all the latest, live, local, and late breaking. Wait, does somebody else use that? 4029 uses that tagline. And nobody watches 4029 anyway. Well, I don't know. Some people may. I'm a 5 News guy. I grew up with Bobby Swafford. He's our sports guy. We used to sit down on the corner down here at the Woodland Hills Boulevard right next to his house, and we used to trade Ninja Turtle action figures. And I remember Rocksteady and Bebop were his favorite, Bobby Swafford's favorite. He was always looking for those two. I don't even know why I'm telling this story. but it's kind of funny. But anyway, that's why I'm a 5 News guy. I'm a 5 News guy. You got Bobby Swafford, a hometown boy right there, and then you got Garrett Lewis. He's like the Chuck Norris of weather. I mean, I don't know if there's any other way to describe Garrett Lewis, but you always know when things are serious because that's when the sleeves go up, and it just doesn't it doesn't get much better than that. So now that I've plugged 5 News, I get a little bit off subject. You know, when you do these live shows like this, that was the greatest part about the MMA podcast that I did. You know, you really don't script any of this stuff, and so if you wind up talking about something, that's it. You just wind up talking about it. So here's what I want to do. I want to get into the game this past Friday night, the high school football. We were at home. We took on the Pocola Indians. Things did not go our way. We had a few turnovers. We blanked out in the first half. We didn't score in the first or second quarter. We did come back pretty strong in the third quarter with 16 points, and that's about as strong as the rally got. We only scored 8 in the fourth. As far as Tahlequah Sequoia goes, they came out strong. We gave up a fumble, which gave Sequoia great field position in the first quarter. They capitalized on that. They scored a touchdown. They ended up scoring twice in the first quarter. They scored once in the second quarter. They scored again twice in the third quarter, twice again in the fourth quarter, and that's what left us with a 48-24 final score. Now, rolling down through the stats here, what I want to do is I want to go through Max Preps. I don't know if a lot of people keep up with Max Preps. If you don't, go to maxpreps.com, type in Roland. It'll give you a bunch of options. You can look for any sport. You can check out Mr. Rainwater and the golf team. You can check out Coach Pratt and the track and field. You can check out basketball, football, baseball, anything you want to find, you can find it there, except a foot-long sub from Subway. You can't find those there, which is what I'm hungry for right now. It's where I'm going to go for lunch now that I've plugged Subway. Here's our stats, passing stats. Eli Dalton, he's the only one that's got stats for us. He threw the ball 40 times. He completed 23 of his passes for 327 yards. I mean, he threw for a bunch. I mean, Eli's arm was going off all night. His average pass was 14.2 yards. We had 3 touchdowns. He threw for 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. His longest pass was 71 yards, which was a bomb. And he ended up with a 98.6 quarterback rating for that game. Now you get down here. This is where we struggled, folks. Our rushing, as I mentioned, L.J. Williams, number 5, everybody's favorite. He was injured for this game. He got a little banged up in Spyro, and so we didn't see him at all this past week, and we're hoping we can see him against Keys this week. Izzy Clark ran the ball 3 times, only picked up 4 yards. Jacob Cantrell ran the ball 8 times for 13 yards. Javen Bray ran the ball 3 times for 1 yard. And I don't mean to rub this in, Eli Dalton, but I've got to report the stats. Eli carried the ball 12 times for minus 16. And I realize some of those are going to be sacks. It's not like he just picked up the ball and ran backwards. I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea about that. But that's something that I'm sure the coaching staff, they're going to work on that. I mean, that's what you got to look at with quarterback protection. You've got to look at your offensive line. I know the coaches are looking at that one stat right there. You've got your quarterback carrying the ball 12 times, minus 16 yards. You've got to work that offensive line. There's some big boys on that offensive line. So, I think just a little bit of tightening up, a little bit of working together, a little bit better communication, and they're probably going to hook up a nice tandem there to fix that problem, fill those holes in, and not let so many people by. Now, as far as receiving goes, I mean, Rangers were catching passes all over the place. We had Gage Marquez caught the ball 1 time for 5 yards. Austin Rose caught the ball 2 times for 25 yards. Who got next? Jacob Cantrell. He caught the ball 2 times for 24 yards. And then, I'm trying to do this in order. Logan Wolf caught the ball 4 times for 53 yards, and Logan took a pounding every time he caught that ball. But like I said, Logan just kept getting up, and he did have to shake it off a few times, like Taylor Swift said to do. But he ended up doing that just fine. Also here we have Julius Plummer, the Juice. He caught the ball 5 times for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then who do we have last but not least? I'm guessing we have Jackson Wells. Jackson Wells caught the ball 9 times for 112 yards and 1 score. So that's where our 3 touchdowns came from in the air that we mentioned with Eli Dalton's passing stats. So our pass game is good. I mean, our pass game's great. Eli Dalton is hitting 6 different receivers in a game. I mean, that's when you know your receivers are running the right routes. They're getting open. The quarterback is noticing these guys. If we could just, I mean, imagine the yardage if we could pick up through the air if our offensive line tightens up just a hair. I mean, you never know what Eli could be. Eli could be throwing for 550, 600 yards a game. So I know they're going to work on that. They're going to capitalize on that. The coaches are this week in the front line, and also the running game a little bit. I hope we see LJ back. LJ's good at punching the ball up the middle. Pretty much any hole he finds, he's going to go through it. And we've got some other guys here that can back him up there. So. We saw some flashes from Jacob Cantrell, and we talked a lot about him on the last show about how he's just got a nose for the football on defense. But when you hand it off to him, when the ball is snapped, you never know what he's capable of doing. So he's a tough kid. He plows through the line whenever he's got to get through. He's not a 3-down back, but he's definitely somebody who can pick up a first down. When you need that to be done. Offensive fumbles and, well, I mean, you guys know fumbles. That's been one of our vices so far this year. In the 3 games we've played, that's. I mean, we tightened up really well against Spyro. We only lost one turnover against Spyro. We had way too many turnovers against Shakota, and then we experienced 2 fumbles lost and 1 interception. This past weekend. So now all-purpose yards, let's go ahead and talk about this. Cole Davis had 10 kick return yards. Austin Rose had 25 receiving yards and 15 kick return yards. Julius Plummer had 108 receiving yards, 14 kick return yards, and 22 punt return yards. That's for a total of 144 for those who are doing the math. Gage Marquez, 5 receiving yards, 31 kick return yards for a total of 36. Jackson Wells, 112 receiving yards, 15 kick return yards for a total of 127 all-purpose. Then we've got Izzy Clark, 4 rush yards for a total of 4. Jacob Cantrell, 13 rush yards, 24 receiving yards, 20 kick return yards for a total of 57. Javen Bray had 1 rush for 1 yard. Was that in the stats up here? I don't know. I didn't see that. Maybe I did. Yeah, I mentioned that. Yeah, he had 3 carries for 1 yard. Javen Bray. Well, I mean, I thought I saw him do more than this. I don't know. Maybe I was looking the other direction, but Javen seemed to be. I don't know if that stat's right, folks. We're going to have to get a little confirmation on that. I could have sworn I saw Javen Bray run the ball almost downfield once. Also, Logan Wolf and his 53 receiving yards. That's where he ended up on the total. And so that's where we ended up with stats. We've talked about our offense. We've talked about our there's not a whole lot to say about defense. People are putting up a good, decent amount of points on us. We saw things go our way in Spyro, but, we're not going to play Spyro every week. So there's a lot of different things that we have to work on. I know we had our players get to the quarterback several times. Devin Kelsey, you guys saw him get into the backfield there and just almost annihilated their running back, and then he ended up pitching the ball back to the quarterback, I think, and the quarterback ended up getting smoked in the backfield. We also saw Zach Muller, Big Zach, he came plowing through the line several times, and we saw him sack the quarterback. He came up with a couple of good sacks, and I don't know if there's any no, rolling through Max Preps, there's no defensive stats, so I don't know how many sacks we ended up coming up with on defense. But these are all areas of opportunity, good opportunities for our defense to capitalize on, our offense to capitalize on. Look, I mean, you guys heard me talk about with the kickoff return yards. We had 6 different players returning kickoffs and punts. Which that's a whole lot of kicking, and those only come from scores from the other team. So hopefully we can minimize that. But we've still got a lot of kids here who are real talented when it comes to running the ball back. So that's a good positive thing. It's a good thing to end up with. Now, flipping over here, this is going to be our challenge for the week. I've got some stats on Keys, the Keys Cougars. Nobody really keeps up with their stats on Max Preps. Nobody really does that. I don't see a lot of game stats entered in, but somebody's putting averages in. So that's what we're going to talk about. The biggest thing we've got to do, and football players, if you're listening to this podcast, which I know you are, I don't know how many of you are, but I know at least a good number of you are. Defense. We've got this Alden Terrell, I guess is his name, number 24. Rangers, just remember this. Keep your eyes on number 24. That's the one who's going to be running this ball all game if you let him. Now, I know we can do a good job at stopping the run. So, rush yards per game from Keys, 394 yards. That's their average. Now, I know they're only 2-0, but, I mean, in 2 games, you've got to put up some mega yards to average 394. So, when you're looking at a team averaging 394 rushing yards a game, you know you got to tighten up on defense. And I know a couple of places we saw that we have some opportunities to work on defensive end. We've got to get our defensive ends, also our safeties. They're tearing us up on the left side of the field when they throw deep. And but the good thing about Keys is they're not passing the ball very much. They're averaging 20 pass yards per game. I don't know if that's just because they like to run, or you never know what they're capable of. So I'm not saying Keys is not capable of passing the ball. They just don't do it very much. They're averaging 20 pass yards a game on top of that 394 rushing, so that gives them a total offensive yards per game of 414. Here's the big part, offense. Look out for this. Their tackles per game. Keys is averaging 56 tackles per game. Now think about that. That's a whole lot of tackles per game. So that's not too much less than as many plays as you can get off in a game. So, our offensive line, that's where we talked about our offensive line just a second ago. We have to fill in those gaps. We have to tighten up just a hair. And we cannot let these guys get to our quarterback. We cannot. They're averaging 2 sacks a game, which that's also just an average. So, they've had more than that in at least one. Also, points per game, 43. So, we saw Tahlequah Sequoia come in. They put up a good number of points. I did not bring my water bottle to the desk before I sat down today. That's my fault. But anyway, scoring 43 points a game here for Keys. We saw Tahlequah Sequoia come in, and they had no problem putting points on the board. So, with 48, Keys is only scoring 5 less than that in a game. So if we let them, they will score as many times as they want to. But our goal for this week, not to let them do it. Don't let them score. Don't let them through that line. The defense most definitely can stop it. We see some of the same kids on defense that we do on the offensive line, and we can fill those gaps. We can plug the holes. We can keep that running back from getting through there. If we can tighten up on the ends, we can keep them from getting around the ends and running it all the way in for a touchdown. So that's where we're sitting with our high school information. This week we are going to be, and I'm going to tell you how to get there. A lot of people have said, man, where is Keys High School? Here's the problem. A lot of people have been looking for Keys, Oklahoma, and that's not where the field is. We're going to Park Hill, and there's 3 different ways to skin a cat, and they're all fun. So you can either go down I-40 and jump off at Sallisaw, take 59. Up north, you can go through Marble City, which will take you to 82, up through Cookson and Dry Creek, and up past Wildcat Point. You can go that way. That is about 53 miles. It'll probably take you just over an hour. Pretty much all these are going to take you just a little bit over an hour. About an hour and 8 minutes, 52 and a half miles, just over 52 and a half if you want to take 59 up through Sallisaw. Also, you can take 40 to Vian. You can go straight up north, up 82, and go past Black Gum and Evening Shade, up through Cookson and Wildcat Point. You guys know where that is. That's how most of you get to Tahlequah to begin with. Or if you just feel like driving an extra 7 minutes and about an extra, 6.5 miles, you can go get off at Weber Falls. You can take Indian Road up through, I guess Paradise Hill. It runs right through Paradise Hill, up next to the Cherokee State Game Refuge, and then run it all past up through Pettit, and then that's where you're going to find Park Hill. So you'll find Keys High School one of those 3 ways. I think everybody has access to GPS these days. So if you could type that in, Park Hill, Oklahoma, or Keys High School, I've got an address for Keys High School. I've got 26622 South 520 Road in Park Hill. That's how you get there. Now, what I want to do before we cut everybody loose for the day, we're going to talk about Roland Youth League football. We did see our first and second grade. They did suffer their first loss of the season. And we all know losses are pretty rare with the first and second grade. They get out there, they play ball. Coach Marcus Dawes does a great job with our first and second grade kids. So I'm going to read you a little piece that our league director, Anthony DeWitt, put up on the Roland Youth League football page. Anthony said, I think it's a little late is better than never, right? Super proud of our young Rangers. Went into Stillwell Saturday morning and showed them how the Rangers play ball. First and second grade lost their first game of the season, 13-18 in a hard-fought battle that we actually led for all but the final minutes. Those little guys are sure to bounce back this week when they face Pocola. Third and fourth grade pitched a shutout. It's our third and fourth grade Rangers, one step up. They won their game 12-0. We've seen a lot of shutouts. Rangers are pitching a bunch of shutouts this year in Youth League football. And the fifth and sixth grade Rangers remain undefeated and uncontested, picking up another 35-0 blowout win. And as far as I know, this is what I've been told, it was 35-0 around halftime, or just a little after halftime. So our coaches, Anthony DeWitt and Rocky Price, they did a real good job at discipline with the kids. You know, if you're leading by that, let's go ahead and get everybody in, give everybody a great amount of playing time. We don't have to run the score up. We don't have to make everything an embarrassment. And, those guys, these coaches, they just let the kids out there to play football. That's what they do. I think Ashton Peters scored another couple of times, if I remember correctly. I don't have good stats in front of me to speak on that as much as I want to. But, the boys are on fire. That's what our league director said. And now Anthony DeWitt says he hopes everybody will come out this weekend and support our Youth League Rangers as we are back home and take on the Pocola Indians. See you there. So we've got 3 games left for the season. We've got Pocola, then we've got our homecoming where the Panama Razorbacks come to town, and then our final game is going to be on the road at Muldrow. But this week we are at home. The Youth League Rangers are at home against the Pocola Indians. So that will be a sight to behold, and we hope nothing but the best for these kids, and so that's what we're going to watch for. I want to encourage everybody. Now, I understand. We're going to run into the same problems. Not everybody's going to be able to go to Park Hill to watch the high school Rangers against Keys this Friday night. If you cannot make it, go to the Inside Fort Smith Facebook page, like that page, keep your eyes open, or go to the Ranger Podcast Network page, like it, keep your eyes peeled, because we will be posting links to listen to the game as we broadcast live. Dennis McCaslin and myself will be on probably at about 6:45. We'll be doing sound checks before that, but we'll be on about 6:45 to get everything kicked off and talk about our broadcast sponsors. And then we'll have action for you as soon as that happens. So not everybody's going to get to go to the Keys game, and that's fine. But make sure you listen live. We do have access to that. Spread the word. I looked down at our switchboard at one point. I guess our I was fixing to say calorie counter, but this has nothing to do with food. I'm just super hungry. I'm super hungry right now, and I feel like I need a sub in my life. But I looked down at our counter, and we had at one point I think it was even in the fourth quarter. It was late in the game, and we were still way down. But we had 107 people listening live, and that was with 2 different radio stations there. Cooks and Hills Broadcasting was there, live streaming the game. They had some folks doing the radio play-by-play. We had the Mix in Salisaw, which I haven't heard any feedback about them. Except about the music they play. And so I don't know how that went, but we had 107 people at just one spot in the fourth quarter that I noticed. And so that's an outstanding number. I mean, it may not sound like a bunch, but it is. I mean, we're a small school. We're not Fort Smith Southside. You know, we're not going to have 2,000 people listening to a game, especially being at home. That's a lot of listeners for us having a home game. So I know that this is why we're doing this, folks. We're doing this because there's a lot of people who can't even come to Ranger Stadium, and that's why we want to make this happen. We want to make the broadcast happen for everybody. So that is a big mission accomplished right there. And so we will see you Friday in Park Hill, Oklahoma, against Keys. We will see you Saturday at Ranger Stadium. We are at home. We've got Pocola coming to town for the Youth League. I want to hit our sponsors one more time before we vamoose for the day. Our app, the Ranger Football Podcast app on Google Play, is sponsored by Southern Trading and Pawn. That's for all Android devices. Southern Trading and Pawn is located at 4621 Towson Avenue, right on the corner of Towson and Phoenix in Fort Smith. Stop by and see Vernon and the crew for all your trading and pawn needs. If you have any questions, call 479-434-4830. Our app on the Apple App Store for iTunes for all Apple devices is sponsored by The Slab in Roland, located at 104 South Roland Road. The Slab is your home for the best barbecue on this side of the river. They're open 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Saturday, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. The Slab Trailer is also open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Friday, and catering is absolutely available by request. And I've seen a lot of people mention Slab Catering. So a good friend of mine, Tim Hearn, he mentioned something about the Slab the other day. I'm thinking that they catered an event that he attended. And Tim, of course, for those of you who know Tim Hearn, he is over the entire Fort Smith EMS. He is the head duck out there. I grew up at church with his son, Andy, a real good friend of mine. And Tim is great people. So I know he's telling the truth about the Slab when he did the review. So if you have any questions, if you want to get catering, or if you just want to place an order, call 918-503-6531. Get some Slab barbecue. Also, the Ranger podcast is the Ranger Football podcast. Let me quote my product correctly. Is brought to you by Mantees Casual Wear, focused on the adolescent male of all ages, and by Mayrays for casual wear with a more feminine touch for the ladies. Custom orders are welcome. You can follow both lines on Facebook or simply go to man-tees.com. Use the promo code Rangers for 20% off your orders. And as always, last but not least, the Center Street Parlor, located at 1731 West Center Street in Greenwood, Arkansas. They're open Tuesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to whenever they finish. For more information or to schedule an appointment for your next tattoo, call Fernie or Isaac at 479-252-6274. And a reminder, we will broadcast the game on Friday night live from Park Hill, Oklahoma against Keys, the Roland Rangers against Keys. They are the Cougars. We will broadcast that live on InsideFortSmith.com and Oklahoma Sports. Every Friday night, we will do the exact same thing wherever the Rangers play. It doesn't matter if they're in Roland or Idabel, which is coming up very shortly. So we'll make sure we get that information to everybody about the schedules. So I want to thank everybody who's listening today. I know we've had a good amount of live listeners. This is the part where our playbacks will grow, our downloads. I mean, I even get stat updates on people who download the podcast onto their phone. If you listen to the podcast section in iTunes, if you jump on there and you just listen there, or if you download the show, if you've got the app, every time you hit play on that, well, actually not every time. It only logs the first listen for each user, but for every listener who listens to that on the app, it shows up as a download, and that's part of our stats. That's part of our 600 to 700 listeners a week that we average. So I really appreciate, everybody here does. We all appreciate those who have downloaded those apps. Remember, go to your Google Play Store or your Apple App Store, type in Ranger Football Podcast, and download those apps, and you can keep up with all the latest news and information on Roland High School and Youth League football. And until we have more information, actually we're going to cover the games that are going to be going down this weekend. We're going to cover those on the next show. So until then, until next week, thank you very much, and we'll be back with more Ranger Football Podcast.
You're listening to the Ranger Football Podcast, brought to you by Southern Trading and Pawn and the Slab in Roland.